All right, in this next group of slides, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss how we get our Flex group to actually connect to local authentication or to some type of protocol such as an EAP or LEAP or some other EAP type of protocol to get that other type of authentication that may exist. So here you can see we're in FlexConnect groups, edit, and then we're going to edit our group that we've created in this environment. It's called Flex group. I can't even remember what's the group we created in our environment. So enable AP local authentication. We have that. Remember, we're going to be in general. Once we've done general, we have to go to local authentication next, and then local users and protocols. There'll be one for each. So here's our FlexConnect groups. This is how we would configure it. We have our local authentication, our local users, and our protocols available here. So let's look out in our environment how this would be put together. So first off, we're going to be under wireless, and we're going to be in our FlexConnect groups. Our FlexConnect group for our particular example is upgrade test. Now, one of the first things I want you to look at is enable AP local authentication. This is what we're going to use to enable the authentication process for this particular FlexConnect group. Now, we can create a user. We can put in a username. Let's say the username is Bill. You can put in his password. So Bill ABC. We then add the user to our group, and you can see we're pushed back. But when we go back to local authentication, you can see that Bill is included in the group. Now, the number of users is currently 2. These will be locally authenticated by the AP, but we can have this so this set up so there are 100 users on this AP. That is the maximum. We can also upload a CSV file and use that for authentication. Now, one of the cool things about this is that this is locally to the AP. So unless the AP is down, authentication is going to work. Now, once we have all this configured, we can actually decide which protocol we're going to use. When we selected enable AP local authentication here, and we clicked OK, this allowed local authentication protocols to be checked. So now we can use LEAP, EAP-FAST, PEEP, EAP-TLS for our authentication process. Remember, EAP is just a framework. They're slightly different, each one of these methodologies, LEAP, EAP-FAST, PEEP, and EAP-TLS. So if you're a little shaky on that, please go back to the security module and review that information. Now, there's other things we talked about. We already talked about image upgrades and ACL mapping, our VLAN, our wireless LAN to ACL mapping, and policies is stuff we're going to talk about later. Our central DHCP, we talked about that already in a previous area. We can enable VLAN support for this FlexConnect group, and we can override a VLAN on an AP, have it be something completely than it really is. Our native VLAN ID, remember this native VLAN ID on this side has to match to the wireless LAN controller's management VLAN. So this has to match on the other side. We can also do our wireless LAN ID to VLAN ID mapping here in this particular area. So lots and lots of stuff to configure here. If I click VConnect Vlan Templates, this brings us to another area. I already did an example of this before, so let's go ahead and take a look at what I mapped out. We said the native VLAN maps to VLAN ID 1, and then we could hit apply. I can even do new mappings in my environment. I could say VLAN customer data maps to VLAN ID 200. And then we could apply this. When we apply this, you can see we now have VLAN IDs 1 and 2 available to us. These are VLAN IDs that have mapped to another VLAN ID in our environment. Now, obviously, in your naming convention, you can be a little more a little nicer with your naming convention so you can understand it better. Now we can you can see that to remove it is simply going to this down arrow menu and using it there. Now our FlexConnect group, when we go to this group, we can actually take a look at our VLAN templates. Remember, we had an example template that we could apply here. Remember, our example of our VLAN template was applied here. Example VLAN templates We have two VLAN IDs mapped out. So that's how we would take a VLAN template and then apply it to a FlexConnect group. You can see upgrade test, and again, VLAN template name example. When I choose example, it has those two VLAN ID templates that I defined, remember? One for 200, which was data, and the other one was for a native VLAN mapping. So really, really cool features there. And then last but not least, we can have an external module configuration, FlexConnect local switching. We can use local switching in this case or this environment. All right, and this is just the slide that goes along with the demo we just did where we can create that wireless LAN VLAN mapping where we can have our wireless LAN ID mapped to an actual VLAN ID. In this case, they had wireless LAN ID 5, which is pod 1 flex, whatever wireless LAN profile that is, associated with an SSID, of course, is going to be mapped to VLAN 16. And VLAN 16 is where that wireless data is going to be delivered to. Now remember, our wireless LANs, when it equals a VLAN, that is segmented data. When that hits the wired side, we are traversing VLAN 16. We will be using VLAN 16's default gateway. Remember, this VLAN equals a subnet. So we have defined the point of presence for the entire wireless LAN, basically, where it lands on the wired network. The point of demarcation between our wired and wireless network, there's got to be some transfer between wireless IDs and actual VLANs. We map that out right here for our FlexConnect groups.